How many of you have ever waited until the last minute to start on a project that you knew about weeks in advance? Raise your hand. Essentially everybody in here. For those of you that raised your hand, my goal today is to help you understand how to overcome procrastination and achieve your goals and achieve your dreams. When I was 12 years old, my dream was to be a businessman. You see, I grew up in a very poor neighborhood in a city called Oakland, California. And in order to make extra money to help my mom out, I used to go to our local gas station and ask people if I could pump their gas for spare change. Well, one day, while I'm at the gas station working, a guy in a brand new all-white Corvette drives up. He gets out of the car, he's wearing the nicest suit I had ever seen. It wasn't as nice as this one, but his was nice. So I rushed over to him to ask him if I could pump his gas. He said yes. And when I was done, he dug in his pocket. He pulled out a wad of cash. It was a lot bigger than this wad of cash. He handed me $20, which was the most anyone had ever given me for pumping their gas. In addition to giving me the money, he gave me some advice. Young man, as you get older, I want you to stay in school and stay out of trouble. As he got in his car preparing to drive away, I had to ask him the question that I know all of you are thinking. Excuse me, sir, what kind of job do you have? He looked at me with more confidence than any man I had ever seen in my life. And he said, I'm a businessman. His words and generosity sparked a dream in me. And from that moment on, I've been determined to stay in school, to stay out of trouble. I'm still working on that one. And to become a businessman. Fast forward some years later, I became the first person in my immediate or extended family to graduate college. I even took it a step further and got a master's degree. Fast forward some years after that, I landed my very first corporate job, which required me to wear a suit to work every single day. So I had the corporate job, I had to wear a suit. I achieved my dreams. I became a businessman. And then one day everything changed. By this time, I had moved from the Oakland, San Francisco Bay Area to Los Angeles, which is about 6 hours in distance, to take a job as an executive in training for one of the largest retail brands in the world. I was married, I had 2 kids, and my wife was pregnant with our third. My boss called me into the office one day, and out of nowhere, he fired me. He said the company wanted to go in a new direction, and today will be my last day. The toughest part was going to tell my pregnant wife that I got fired and I couldn't provide anymore. So due to me being fired, and due to her being pregnant, we had no choice but to move back home to the Oakland, San Francisco Bay Area. And once we started looking at the cost of living in the Bay Area, we realized we couldn't even afford an apartment. So for 5 to 6 months of my wife's pregnancy, and I'm in my mid-30s at this time, we start off by living with her parents in her spare bedroom, the bedroom that my wife grew up in as a kid. Then we moved from her parents' house to her twin sister house and slept in their spare bedroom with their family. And then we moved from her twin sister's house to her older sister's house, and she was gracious enough to allow us to sleep in their living room on their couch. So I'm in my mid-30s with a pregnant wife sleeping on the couch in someone's living room. This is when I felt like I hit rock bottom, which forced me to ask myself, how did I go from making 6 figures in corporate America to sleeping on someone's couch, jobless and houseless with my pregnant wife and my 2-year-old daughter? The answer, I was a procrastinator, and I had to be honest with myself on what got me there. So as I sat on that couch, with my head in my hands, crying. I made a commitment to myself and to my family that day that I would never allow procrastination to ruin my life again. So from that point on, I started to study and research procrastination. I started to have conversations with family members and friends and colleagues to ask them what areas of their lives they were procrastinating in. I started to read online articles and books about procrastination. I listened to podcasts, and I did everything in my power to ensure that this would never happen to me again. One of the podcasts I was listening to was the Speaking of Psychology podcast hosted by Kim Mills. In this particular episode, she interviewed Fuchsia Sirios, who's a PhD at Tulane University. Dr. Sirios said, procrastination is not a productivity issue. It's not that we're lazy or that we have poor time management skills. Procrastination is a problem that's caused by our emotions. And the sooner you can learn to manage your negative emotions, the faster you'll be able to overcome procrastination. A study in the Psychological Bulletin found that 20% of all adults are chronic procrastinators. I want you to look around the audience and find 5 people. I want you to make eye contact with those people. I want you to smile at those people. And when you're done, turn back around and look at me. So, out of those 5 people that you just looked at, one of them is a chronic procrastinator. It's up to you to figure out who that is. A chronic procrastinator is described as someone who consciously and consistently delays taking action. A study in that same journal found that 80 to 95% of college students procrastinate, with one study showing that college freshmen who find themselves on academic probation procrastinate more. And I can relate. It took me 7 years to get my undergraduate degree. And during that time, I found myself on academic probation. Again, I was a procrastinator. A study of 1,500 undergraduate students conducted by the app Stop Procrastinating found that 74% of students who took that survey admitted that social media and the internet are their biggest causes of procrastination. In that same study, 64% of those students admitted that when they're studying and they respond to a social media notification, they lose their train of thought 64% of the time. So my question is, if you know that you're going to lose your train of thought when responding to a notification on social media, why don't you turn your notifications off? Obviously, it's just not that simple. A study conducted by Darius Farrow on 2,219 people across the workforce found that 88% of employees across the workforce admitted to procrastinating at least 1 hour every day. Now, I spent the past 15 plus years in corporate America, and I can tell you that 88% is not telling the truth. They procrastinate for more than 1 hour a day. That's for sure. A study conducted by BASEX, B-A-S-E-X, a business research firm, on the cost of unnecessary interruptions on innovation and productivity says it costs the world about $650 billion annually. Procrastination is a problem that causes emotional issues, health issues, stress and anxiety, but for some reason, people continue to procrastinate. So the question becomes, how do you stop procrastinating? I was listening to an episode of the Robbins podcast. I love her podcast, by the way. And in this particular episode, it was entitled, How to Stop Procrastinating by the World's Leading Expert. That expert, Dr. Joseph Ferrari, conducted 30 plus years, 3 decades of research on procrastination. He's my personal mentor, and his findings suggest that the only way to overcome procrastination is you have to take cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. For those of you that may not be familiar with CBT, it's essentially changing the way you think, your cognition, and changing the way you act, your behavior. If you can change the way you think and change the way you act, you can stop procrastinating. As I've said, I've spent years researching procrastination. It's worked on me. It's worked on my family. I went from being a procrastinator to researching procrastination. And I think I've cracked the code on what it takes to overcome procrastination. So what I'd like to share with you are the 5 P's for overcoming procrastination. The first P is to pause. No, I don't mean pause like that. I mean pause like when you find yourself procrastinating, I want you to pause. Like stop in the moment and ask yourself this question. What is the emotion that I'm feeling that's causing me to procrastinate based on this particular project? The answer to that question will provide you with the foundation for helping you understand where your procrastination begins. The next P, process. Now that you've identified that negative emotion, let's say that negative emotion is self-doubt. I want you to process that self-doubt. I want you to challenge that self-doubt by asking yourself this question. Why is self-doubt causing me to procrastinate on this particular project? The answer to that question will be the foundation for helping you understand how to overcome procrastination. Now, Dr. Ferrari said that in order to overcome procrastination, you need to change the way you think, change the way you behave. That's what 30 plus years of research has told us. My research is very similar. The first 2 P's were focused on changing the way you think. The next 3 P's will be focused on changing the way you act. So the third P is all about planning. Every night before I go to sleep, I plan my following day in advance. What are my tasks? What are my responsibilities? And I also have another plan. I plan on how to avoid distractions. A lot of times people who procrastinate, they don't know how to avoid distractions. So my challenge to all of you is to do the same. The following day, I talked about planning. The 4th P is about prioritizing. Here's what I want you to do. Write out that task list and create 3 buckets. The first bucket is the critically important list. The middle bucket is the important list. The final bucket is the least important list. Obviously, your day should be focused on your critically important, and then you work your way down the list. So even if you find yourself procrastinating, you know exactly what your priority list consists of, and then you can work on your priority list to move yourself forward. The last P is the most important P. The last P is to push forward. This is all about taking action, right? None of this works if you don't work. Right? I can stand up here and give you all the advice you like, or I'd like, but the reality is nothing works if you don't work. There's a quote that says, knowledge is power. It's one of them. Let me start this over. There's a quote that says, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, but it's the application of knowledge that makes knowledge powerful. So you can have all the knowledge in your brain. If you don't take action, you won't get the results, right? So I joined this stage today and I told you that my dream was to become a businessman. And then I got fired. I lost my career and I almost lost my family. But I'm standing here today to tell you and to show you that when you understand how to overcome procrastination, you can take control of your life and make your dreams come true. I went from being houseless and jobless, sleeping on my sister-in-law's couch with my pregnant wife and my 2-year-old daughter, to climbing the corporate ladder, eventually becoming a vice president in corporate America, buying my family our dream home, and traveling the world and getting to do amazing things like deliver TEDx talks in beautiful locations like Zimbabwe, Africa. next time you find you or someone you know procrastinating, I want you to do two things. If it's yourself, I want you to remember the 5 Ps. If it's someone else, someone that you love, I want you to introduce them to the 5 Ps. On the other side of procrastination is progress. On the other side of procrastination is power. On the other side of procrastination is your purpose. Thank you.